Alrighty. So, I know I should have probably done this when the album was released, like on the day, but I don't. I. Oh well. So, this is my review for Constricting Rage of the Merciless by Goatwhore. Anyway, so Constricting Rage of the Merciless was released on July 8th of 2014. And this was Goatwhore's sixth album and the fourth to be produced by Eric Rutan. This would also be the last album to be produced by Eric Rutan. Sorry, I think allergies are causing my eyes to water. So, there's various interviews and even the Wikipedia page for this album. They all note that the band recorded the audio to this on 2-inch tape. I'll be honest, I don't hear a difference. I don't hear a difference between this and other recordings that weren't on tape, but that might come down to the end production, though. Constricting Rage of the Merciless starts off with the track Poisonous Existence and Reawakening, a song that truly does sound poisonous and venomous with Sammy Duet's guitar riffage. I think about a pile of snakes ready to sink their teeth into you. It definitely has that kind of venomous snake thing. Granted, I feel like this album, at least with its production, puts less attention on James Harvey from, of course, that production perspective in comparison to the previous albums that had him on it. He seems to be put more in the background, and his bass is less audible than the other members. I have no idea why the album was produced this way. Though I enjoy Poisonous Existence as a song, I really do like that song. I don't really understand why the album starts off with it. In my personal opinion, Baring Teeth for Revolt would have been a much better song to start off the album because it is high energy and it instantly draws the listener in. And I think that's what you want to do when you release an album, is to draw people in. I'm, granted, the type of person that views an album as an experience. For me, the final 3 albums that Goatwhore produced with Eric Rutan are more like a collection of songs. In juxtaposition to the first 3 Goatwhore albums, those are set up like an experience. Each song seems perfectly placed one after the other. In the case of Constricting, though, I feel like this album is just a collection of songs instead of part of the Goatwhore experience. I'm the type of person, though, that listens to music with just about everything I do. I think the only time I'm not listening to music is when I'm literally recording a video. Honestly, that's how I am. This album, to me, is best listened to while driving or, of course, doing anything relatively fast. Maybe an intense cardio workout or lifting weights. Actually, this album would probably be perfect for these guys that I had met years ago. I remember going to a Cannibal Corpse concert in 2015, and I met a couple of bodybuilders, actually. And they liked this type of metal. You know, they loved Cannibal, they loved Behemoth, because it was Cannibal Corpse and Behemoth at that show. And they would lift to them, you know, and obviously it worked because these dudes were fucking ripped. They were buff. Anyway, Nocturnal Conjuration of the Accursed is a punky kind of type of song. It's pretty good, but it doesn't stand out that much to me. Schadenfreude is similar with its sort of seafaring sound, if that makes any sense. It really reminds me of what kind of songs would play at the bars and venues that I would see when I would go to shows in 2015 and 2016. It doesn't, I feel kind of bad saying this, but those songs don't stick out to me though. They're not like super mega jams for me. But it doesn't mean that they're bad. They just don't jam. Externalize This Hidden Savagery is the final track on the album, and to me, a strange way to end the album, in my opinion. It doesn't feel like an end song, if that makes sense. It feels out of place. To end the album with this song, I actually, when I listened to this album back, like front to back, uh, and the album ends with this song, I end up thinking to myself, that's it? It's over? And maybe that was kind of the point, like, it's over. Oh my God, I gotta listen to it again. But for me, it didn't feel like, it felt more like, oh, that's it? That's how it ends? It's not like a true ending to me, if that makes sense. Um, the most popular songs off this album, though, surely are Bearing Teeth for Revolt and FBS. Rightfully so, because those are great songs to listen to, both studio version and live. These are songs that are crowd hits when I've seen Goatwhore play. They're songs that you can shake your ass to. All I can say is that Sammy Dewey really knew what he was doing when he made those songs. What's interesting to me is that you start to see a little bit of a shift to Benjamin's lyrics and his song type of cadence. If he follows more of Sam's guitar playing in this album. Lyrically, the themes that Benjamin writes about are essentially the same as always, the anti-Christian, whatever kind of shit. Esoteric, that category. Looking through, there are multiple mentions about serpents. I think the word serpent is probably the most common on this entire album, which is fitting of the album art. Once again, we see Jordan Barlow's work and what seems to be an interesting interpretation of a passage at the end of the Bible with the woman of wisdom and the snakes and their diadems. I wrote down that I think that this was a reference to Revelations 12. I'm probably wrong, but I think this has something to do with Revelations, at least the artwork. Now, Bearing Teeth for Revolt has this fun, punky, rock and roll sense to it that I love. It's like a callback to Alchemy of the Black Sun cult from A Haunting Curse. And I know I've said it before, but Sam can really make music to shake your ass to. And I think a lot of that comes from his punk influences, which for me, I hear a lot of that plasmatics, almost arena type of sound of guitar playing he has. I really recommend, I feel like if you really want to understand Sammy Dewey's guitar playing, one of those bands you have to listen to are the Plasmatics. Because once you listen to them, you're like, oh yeah, I hear it. I hear his influence, Him, them, the Plasmatics, and of course Tom G. Warrior. It's like, oh, I hear it now. I hear those influences on Sam. Anyway, my favorite song from this album is, believe it or not, Reanimated Sacrifice, which even surprised me. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, okay, yeah. It's a track that surprisingly I can just keep going back to it because it's so high energy and I just play it over and over again, I guess it's like, okay, I'm so pumped up, In general, this album is high energy. I'm sure, honestly, that a lot of cocaine and partying went into making this album, which really wouldn't be surprising, to tell you the truth. What's interesting to me, though, is that this album is looked at as one of their best examples of talent, or of what someone should, is that in the camera? What someone should listen to if they were to listen to Goatwhore or to get into Goatwhore. And I'm not saying this to be contrarian, but I don't agree with that. Constricting Rage of the Merciless isn't a bad album, but to me, it does not show everything that these musicians are capable of. There are elements of their sound that is on other albums that are more consistent with how they play live versus this one. For example, I personally believe that A Haunting Curse is a great representation of the high energy that Goatwhore has live. Now I know that is Goatwhore's third album, but they have kept that high energy at their shows. And I think A Haunting Curse is a great example of that. Now, the Eclipse of Ages into Black, their first album, is a perfect example of their black metal themes and esoteric interests. Sorry, I can't really talk. Now, naturally, Sammy Dewey leans towards the black metal sound, and his guitars are much heavier than what you would hear on Constricting. You know, if you see Sammy Dewey play live, he has a much heavier tone than what is on the studio album. And, of course, their latest album, at least of 2025, is Angels Hung from the Arches of Heaven. Now, from a musical, talented point of view, that album shows their skill, the actual technical skill at its best point so far. And this album, I think, Angels, is their best representation of Benjamin's vocals. So that's why, to me, I'm like, I don't really agree with Constricting Rage as being their best example, because there's various other albums to me that show it better. If you want an example of the high energy, go to A Haunting Curse. If you want to understand the black metal themes, go to their first album. If you want to hear Ben Falgo's fucking vocals at their best, listen to Angels Hung from the Arches of Heaven. That's what I think. And of course, I'm not here to shit on anyone or to make people look bad. This is, of course, just my opinion. And, in my opinion, I think that a lot of people just instantly wanted to approve anything ever produced by Eric Rutan. And I say this as someone who went to shows from the 2014 to 2017 era, where anecdotally, I would hear just in the crowd, people say that, man, I'm sorry, my nose is so itchy. Wow. Anecdotally, I would hear a lot of people just say that any album that was produced by Rutan was good. And that's ridiculous to me, because it always just came off as blind admiration instead of actually taking the time to process and analyze his work. To me, the best way to gauge someone's work as a producer is to compare his work of a band with another producer's work of the same band. So in the case of Goatwhore, I would compare the Eric Rutan albums in juxtaposition with the non-Eric Rutan albums. You catch my drift? And now, in the case of Goatwhore, I really believe, no pun intended, that they were constricted by Eric Rutan. I really do. Those last 3 albums they produced with him felt like boxed-in versions of themselves to fit Eric Rutan's idea of Goatwhore, as opposed to who Goatwhore really were themselves. To me, I feel like Rutan should have done more to shine a light. He should have highlighted Goatwhore's talents instead of using Goatwhore as his way to get farther as a producer. That's how I view that. That's how those albums come off to me. Not so much to show Goatwhore's talent, but to show the quote-unquote talent from the producer. I don't hate Eric Rutan. I just don't like the albums he produces. I'm just be blunt. Do I prefer Constricting over Carving? Sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely. But I prefer other albums over Constricting, too. It's not bad. It can be fun, it's punky, but there is still an element of magic lost here that was found on A Haunting Curse. I still just do not understand, I really do not understand what changed so drastically from that album, which was produced by Eric Rutan, and the next 3 that he produced. In my opinion, Constricting is the 3rd best album that they made with Rutan. But in order, my favorite Rutan Goatwhore albums would be A Haunting Curse, Blood for the Master, Constricting Rage, and Carving Out the Eyes of God. While I'm very glad that they stopped recording with him, there are still really great songs that came out of this era. Silence, Marked by the Breaking of Bone, An End to Nothing, Death to the Architects of Heaven, Reanimated Sacrifice, and I Avenge Myself are some of my favorite Goatwhore songs of all time. And of course, those came out of the Rutan era. But when you listen to Goatwhore as a whole, their entire discography, there are elements from the Rutan era that, or more like, I wrote this down probably maybe probably backwards. There are elements that are missing from previous albums in the Rutan era. There's actually a lot of that black metal, esoteric, borderline satanic stuff is missing during the Rutan years, which kind of makes me go like, damn, really? There are elements of Sam's style, the more I think about it, which are completely gone, which you would hear on other albums he's played. I just think that a lot of the stuff with the Rutan era albums has a conglomerate of strange decisions overall. For example, just want to say, like, there's this thing that Sammy Due will do, which you hear a lot with Crowbar, especially my favorite album, Sonic Excess, where Sam will do this, he would bend those fucking strings, like, no! And that's not on any of the Goatwhore albums from the Rutan years, and I don't know why. Which he really has this great way of bending those strings. Like, I love the way he does that. But you almost don't hear that. You barely hear it a couple of times on Carving. And then after that, you really don't hear him do it again. If this album could be rearranged, I'd place Baring Teeth for Revolt as the first song on the album, Reanimated Sacrifice as the second, Poisonous Existence third, and Unraveling Paradise fourth. And then we could just kind of go from there. I feel like that order would really change the way this album comes off, and in a way actually make it a lot more high energy and more enjoyable, a much more fun experience. Now, I wrote down that Goatwhore is a lot like a ship. Benjamin is the captain of that ship in many ways, the guiding force, the one who maps out the route they'll take, and the one that'll ensure their destination is met. Sam is the motor. He is the engine. He is the heart of it all, working hard and giving his all. And without these two, Goatwhore would not be. And it seems that after this album, their boat changed course.